What are they and what are they good for? When you go to the supermarket and pick up a bag of peanuts, chances are that those peanuts are a GMO. In fact, just about all food items in the United States that is not organic are a GMO. But why? Let's dive in and take a look at the history of GMOs. GMO stands for Genetically Modified Organisms. This means that the DNA structure of a particular item has been altered in some way either to make it pest resistant or have added vitamins. For example, a certain seed for a crop may be genetically modified to kill pests that normally would feed on the crop, reducing yields. One of the first crops to ever be genetically modified is rice. During the early part of the 1960s, Africa had a crisis where infants would turn blind within the first months to a year. The reason was because of a lack of vitamin A in their diets. As a result, a vitamin A-rich rice was created called golden rice. Golden rice was extremely successful in mitigating the vitamin A deficiency in the diets of young Africans. Such success actually raised the question that if modifying rice to have more of a vitamin was feasible, what else can be done with modifying different crops? As a result, a new age of food engineering was born. Modifying organisms became prominent and still is from the 1970s to present day. A main motive behind genetically modifying crops is because of the exponentially growing population in the United States. Crops alone, without any DNA modification, do not produce enough yield to sustain Americans or the animals that Americans eat. Let's take a look at some of the major genetically modified crops and how they became what they are. One of the most common genetically modified crops is soy. In fact, more than half the world's soy supply is modified. There are many reasons for this though. One reason is to increase resistance to insects and fungus, or as in the case of golden rice, help enrich the soy's natural vitamins and protein content for human consumption, or as animal feed. How is this possible though? Take a wheat crop, for example. Scientists at Monsanto want to make the crop resistant to the pesticide Roundup. That way, the pesticide can be applied to the entire crop and not be damaged. What they do is take a part of the pesticide chemical makeup and insert it into the DNA strain of the wheat seed. It's that simple. The largest company that provides these genetically modified seeds is Monsanto. These farmers are against Monsanto because they basically force the farmers into planting their seeds for crops. In the Midwest, if a farmer saves non-GMO seeds or talks out against Monsanto, the farmers could lose their farm, be sent to jail, and pay large amounts of fines. One might think that trying to alter the DNA of such a tiny seed would be a burden economically. In fact, it is actually cheaper for farmers because they are able to apply the pesticide on the entire crop with the help of a crop duster plan. If the seed were not genetically modified, then the pesticide would have to be applied manually, increasing costs and manual labor. However, in a 2009 report, genetically modified seeds had a large increase in prices compared to those of organic, non-GMO seeds. As a result, the farms that grow GM seeds had a drop in income. Although this is a fairly recent report, it raises the question on whether growing GM seeds or non-GM seeds are better for farmers. As mentioned in one of the earlier slides, America's population is constantly growing, and the need to meet the demands for food is constantly growing as well. But Americans just don't eat wheat or soybeans. We devour meat from cows, pigs, chickens, and the list can go on. The average American eats a little over 270 pounds of meat per year. As a result, these animals need to be fed high amounts of food too, which takes away from crops used for human consumption. To make a 1/4 pound hamburger, it takes 6.7 pounds of feed and 74.5 square feet of land for grazing and feed production. Yes, that is 1/4 of a pound. There are around 30 million cows with an average weight of over 700 pounds used for food. If you take the time to figure out the pounds of feed and land used for grazing and feed production, the number is going to be astonishingly high. If you take all the animals used for consumption and added them up, that number would well surpass the 30 million cows. The amount of feed used for these animals is once again astonishingly high. So, the food the animals eat are also genetically modified to produce the highest output possible. In addition, the feed is modified to have growth hormones and certain steroids that increase the amount of meat on the animals. In 1970, the average weight of usable meat on a cow was close to 625 pounds. In 2012, the weight increased to 784 pounds of usable meat. Such a major increase does not happen naturally. In fact, there is a direct correlation between an increase in genetically modified grain and the increase in weight of cow. It does not only relate to cows, though. This raises a lot of questions about animal feed and animal rights. In recent years, genetically modified crops have been under attack by animal rights activists for many reasons. The modified feed, infused with growth hormones and steroids, causes the animals to grow much quicker than their body can handle. In many cases, animals such as chickens, cows, and pigs grow so quickly that their legs cannot handle the quick increase in weight. The feed also contributes to changes in stomach acidity, as well as an increase of E. coli bacteria. As a result, there are higher instances of contaminated meat from processing. But animal health and safety is not the only thing that is at risk. Human health from consuming GMOs and animals that eat GMOs are also at risk. Though there isn't any definitive research that concretely states that consuming GMOs are a danger to human health, there have been increases in gluten intolerance and lactose intolerance ever since there was a boom in modified crops. The lactose intolerance is a result of the modified feed that is given to animals, which changes the properties of the milk. Within the past 5 years or so, legislation has been passed that requires the labeling of foods that contain genetically modified items, such as soy, wheat, and sugar. In the minds of many people, something that has been genetically modified may sound unappealing. A lot of people are starting to shop at organic food stores trying to stay clear of GMOs, which hurts companies that use GM seeds.
What you can do with GMOs is basically engineer food in ways that make it most profitable from the company's perspective. But from the company's perspective, whatever negative aspects of that might exist are simply irrelevant. And more than being irrelevant, the company is motivated to try to suppress knowledge about those negative aspects. The company is motivated to try to suppress government attempts to regulate in relation to those negative aspects. The company is motivated to try to infiltrate government and lobby government. I mean, when you look at the Clinton administration, Bush Sr., Bush Jr., and Obama, you look at various high-ranking positions in the administrations of all of those presidents, you find people who have worked for Monsanto.
There are many positives and negatives of GMOs. Whether it may be that it is cheap enough to feed America, or that it can cause intolerances to gluten or lactose, genetically modified organisms are in just about everything we eat. I hope you all got an insight into what a GMO is and what it does, and whether or not you look at the ingredients on the next time you buy to see if it contains a GMO.